So to start the proceedings, if we were in the wonderful representation of the state of Hessen in the center of Brussels, I would be able to welcome onto stage Mark Weinmeister, who's the Secretary of State for European Affairs of the state of Hessen. However, clearly we're not. However, we do have him in a pre-recorded video, which I would like to share with you now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to warmly welcome you to tonight's panel discussion under the title Establishing the Competence Center in Bucharest and Building the Networks, brought to us by the European Competence Network built through the CyberSec for Europe research program. Even though we are not able to welcome you physically in our representation these days. And I'm particularly pleased that with tonight's event, we are continuing our partnership with CyberSec for Europe and our partners from the Johann Wolfgang Goethe University in Frankfurt. I very much hope that we will be able to host one of the next CyberSec for Europe general meetings, non-virtually again in our representation. Being in direct contact with each other and seeing each other face to face makes the exchange of information and networking so much easier. Anyway, we are glad that we have the vast opportunities modern information technology can offer these days, enabling us, among so many other things, to have an online conference. Especially within these last few months, under the influence of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have once more realized that the megatrend of digitalization affects the lives of all people in Europe and the world. Many people have been staying at home and have therefore been forced to conduct their daily life at work, in school, or within the digital economy using online services. The changes in work and infrastructure patterns associated with the COVID-19 pandemic have weakened existing cybersecurity measures, leading to a rise in criminals' personalized cyber attacks using new methods and techniques. Thus, our people's vulnerability to cybercrime has increased drastically. A common European approach is therefore vital for online safety in the future. Today's meeting will discuss the impact of the European Council's decision to locate the EU's future cybersecurity research hub in Bucharest. It is a key part of the European Cybersecurity Competence Network and will help us to further build the capacity necessary to secure the digital single market. I'm certain that the Competence Center will achieve its overall mission by setting up and helping to coordinate the National Coordination Centers network and the cybersecurity competence community. And by implementing cybersecurity-related financial support from the Horizon Europe and Digital Europe programs, tonight we will explore how we can achieve our cybersecurity goals over the coming 2 to 3 years. And we will delve into the role of the industrial and academic cybersecurity community across Romania. I wish you, the thought leaders, a successful event with an exciting exchange, and I look forward to an interesting debate of our high-level panel on the allocation of the European Cyber Competence Center to Bucharest and network opportunities. Thank you for your dedication, and I wish you a fruitful evening.
Thank you very much, Herr Weinmeister, and we very much look forward to joining you The representation of the state of Hessen to you has been a very strong and loyal supporter of CyberSec for Europe since we began 2 years ago. I'd now like to introduce, to give his welcome, Professor Kai Ranneberg, who is the coordinator of the project, CyberSec for Europe, and is from the Goethe University in Frankfurt. Kai.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot, David, and good evening to all of you. If we were not in COVID, we would be in a physical scenario, and I can tell you, Mark Weinmeister would have looked for and looked after getting you some specific Hessen delicacies, partly before the event when we had it physical, and also partly afterward. And I can tell you, he's good in choosing these kind of things, and beside being a very nice and amicable host. So now I'm trying to deliver that in some way as a substitute. And you know, in some cinemas, before the real main movie comes, the advertisements come. So I'm the advertisement guy, and I'm also trying to sell you some ice cream. And the ice cream is the CyberSec for Europe world. And first we have a look at the ice cream kitchen. If we go to the next slide, and that will show you a bit of CyberSec for Europe. Basically, the kitchen in which we cook everything up, a number of work packages, but especially a few areas in which we are actually active. And there is something on governance design and for the pilot, and I think we will return to some of the results of that. And we're trying to improve the relation between research and innovation towards industry. And we're working in education, certification, and standardization. And last but not least, we're doing communication and community building, and this event is one of those. And on the next slide, you will find a few of the most recent deliverables that CyberSec for Europe has produced and that you can download for free on the CyberSec for Europe website. The first thing on top of that is in 10.2, that is actually the conference documentation of the Convergence conference. I know some of you have been there and some of you not. So I think those who have been there know that the ones who haven't been there have missed something. And you can actually see in 10.2, you get quite a bit of documentation about that. David has just made the slides a bit bigger because he wanted to avoid this very embarrassing long name that this deliverable has on the website. That is the official name, Clustering Results and SUICT 03 Project Consultation Conference in year 2. And if you're able to pronounce that without any error at the next physical event of CyberSec for Europe, you will get not one drink, you will get 2 drinks. And if you can still pronounce it, then you will get another 2 drinks and on. We're really looking forward to have you in the Hessen representation in May or in June or whenever it is possible. There's 3 other deliverables which are, let's say, which don't have such clunky names, but they should still be interesting. And you know, we're trying to build a research roadmap and development roadmap out of the things that are missing. And when we compare our demos with our research results, and what the demonstration and things contain, that is 5.3. So we've validated our demonstration cases now in phase 1, and you can read about that. And what correspondingly has arrived on the research and development roadmap, you find in 4.4. And so all of that is going hand in hand, and we're trying to improve things there. Then you know we have a big heart for open source, especially open source tools, and for example for education and research, and the virtual lab results of that one you since January can find in deliverable 7.2, and we hope that is also interesting reads for those of you who have an interest in open source and getting forward with that. By the way, I should mention that the platform on which we're all sitting today is also an open source approach, of course, run by our colleagues in TU Delft, and trying to overcome the mantra that some people say everything needs to be happen on Zoom, and there are alternatives, and they can be hosted in Europe or at any place that you trust, and they work with at least some knowledge about the internal structure, actually quite a bit in the case of TU Delft, and as a university who's following suit. I'm proud that Frankfurt University is also on that track. And that means also that we can give the necessary guarantees or can give some assurances with regard to, for example, privacy. And now moving closer to the panel discussion, this is about, of course, governance structures for the new center. It's also about local and regional support of that with the network. And if you look in our deliverables D2.2 and D2.3, you find some of the work that we've done to, for example, enable and support local support and regional support, and especially decentralized and bottom-up support for cybersecurity groups and networks who want to collaborate and work together. We call it Check Cybers in Cyber Hub of regional and competence center. So that is something that you find there in D2.2 and D2.3. Again, there's 20 others, almost actually 30 other deliverables meanwhile, but these are the ones that we'd like to recommend to you. And with that, you probably now deserve your ice cream and you deserve your main movie. And thanks a lot for listening to me. I'm going to go away, ice cream at the exit. And with that, I hand over back to David. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Kai. Right, what follows ice cream? I really don't know. Maybe a glass of wine, but we need to hold back on the any more drink and food until we've finished our panel. Otherwise, we'll get overexcited. So this is a very exciting discussion here. Over the first 2 years of CyberSec for Europe, we've been very much focused around the legislation that started to go through the Parliament in 2019. And we've tracked that in each of the evening sessions that we've had over the last 24 months. As we all know, this came to, we'll hear some more about the status of the legislation and what happens with some of the negotiations in a moment. But the most exciting thing that's happened in this respect has been the announcement of the proposed center in Bucharest. And this has given us the opportunity to explore more about the world of cybersecurity and technology in general, in not only in Bucharest, but also in Romania as a whole. So we have a very exciting panel. We'll start with Miguel Gonzalez Sancho, who is the head of cybersecurity technology and capacity building in DG Connect Unit H1 from the European Commission. We also are very glad to have Ramona Nietzsche. I'm not sure I pronounced your surname correctly, Ramona, but it was a shot. And she is a representative from the permanent representation of Romania to the EU on, amongst other things, cybersecurity, and has been involved in a number of cybersecurity activities within the institutions over the last few years. We also have with us Professor Stelian Brad, who has two roles. One is as president of the Cluj IT cluster, and also he is professor of the Technical University of Cluj-Napoca. I probably haven't pronounced any of these names correctly, so forgive me, but you will correct me later, I have no doubt. And next, very pleased to welcome Monica Florea, who has been a friend of the project for some time, and she's Director of European Projects at Simavi, which we'll hear more about that, but Simavi is a spin-off of Simaco, I believe. And finally, last but by no means least, we're very pleased to welcome Professor Virgil Gligo, who is a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, which most of you will recognize is not in Romania. However, Virgil traces his roots back to Romania and obviously has strong connections, which is why we have him here today. And we're looking forward to hearing views from afar on the Romanian situation. But I'd like to turn back to Miguel, who is, I've said this before, that Miguel is the godfather of the Cybersecurity Competence Center and Network Initiative, and is still very much one of the main drivers of what is happening and what is happening next. So we would love to hear from you, Miguel, an update on the process through the Parliament, and also how things are proceeding with the setting up of the center, And what we can expect in the interim before the centre is actually up and running, and how this will affect the 4 pilots, and particular, obviously, CyberSec for Europe. So we look forward to hearing from you, Miguel.
Thank you, David. Can you hear me?
Yes, if you could switch your volume up a little bit, that would be good.
I have a mic here. Is this better?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let me try like this, and otherwise I can put my headsets on. So good afternoon, David. Good afternoon to my fellow panelists and to all those following. So last time that I participated in an event organized by Cybersecurity for Europe and hosted by the Hessen Land. It was a thing that was back in December on the 9th, and during the event, actually, there was the discussion taking place between member states, and it was decided on that very evening, while we were speaking, that the center would be hosted in Romania. And then some days afterwards, there was the final political trialogue, where the Parliament and the Council reached a political agreement. That was in December. So what is it that has happened since then, and what is it that will happen soon? Well, on the purely legal front, of course, the regulation must still be formally adopted, and that's a process that can still take some weeks. We expect that to happen in April. There's all the legal, minutious work to go through with the linguist lawyers, and that's taking place. With Council and Parliament are doing that together with the Commission. But then, so we need to have that regulation, that legal base, but the work has started already, the practical work. And as the regulation says, the Commission will facilitate the establishment of the center, and let's say support the operations until the center can be autonomous. So you would remember that in the architecture of this proposal, there are 3 main levels: the center itself, that would be based, as said, in Romania. There's the network of national coordination centers, and there's the community, and the 3 are important. Work is ongoing on all 3 aspects. When it comes to the center itself, there is the Commission has started discussing with the Romanian authorities. There's some, issues of, let's say, an administrative nature to attend to the building, and for instance, there will be discussions to be had about a hosting agreement between the center and Romania. And that's something that shall start soon. There is also a lot of administrative work that is taking place within the Commission between with the services concerned. DG Connect, my DG is leading on this file. But we're talking with all the relevant DGs regarding financial issues, regarding the staff issues, regarding building issues, and so forth. And there's a lot to go through when setting up a new EU body, such as this one I'm discovering. There's really a lot before we can really consider the center to be autonomous, and in particular because this will be a body in charge of managing EU funds. And that comes with a lot of conditions and requirements. This is what we're looking into now. That's the level of the center itself, and it will take. We're trying to go as fast as possible, but it will take some time. It always does when you set up a new European body. We've discussed with many colleagues who did it before, because there's several parties involved, and it will take some time. But important to say, we don't, before the center would be fully autonomous, that before it would be able to, just to for those who know about this business, to organize evaluations and select projects and sign projects and things like that. There's much, actually the work will start well before that on other levels than such issues. That's the level of the center. Then the level of, let's say, the member states and the network of the national coordination centers. This is very important. Of course, the member states, the member states are the partners of this partnership, of this center, together with the Commission. And very important, the governing board. The governing board of the center will be the decision, component of the center. Nothing can be done without the governing board. So all the decisions have to be taken there. So the first thing that we need to do is to have a governing board. We have started already. Of course, we cannot do much legal officially before we have adopted a regulation. We need a legal base, but we can start meeting and discussing already with a shadow governing board, as we call it. So, in advance of having the regulation, we can start discussing with member states. And we have already written to all member states to appoint representatives. And we have started already receiving nominations, so that we aim at a first meeting of this shadow governing board over the next weeks, hopefully in the month of March. And why do we do this? Well, first of all, to start creating the atmosphere, to forming this group, which will be working together for the years to come. Of course, it's not ideal to meet at a distance. We know that that doesn't make bonding and working together easy. At the same time, it will be easier in terms of logistics, but we have to do with the current situation of the pandemic. And then, beyond creating this atmosphere, of course, they shall start discussing about the key decisions for the center, preparing the official governing board to take the first decisions. So the rules of procedure of the governing board, the chair, the host agreement, the director of the center, all of these things, we can start preparing them. And actually, in the Commission, we have started doing the groundwork to prepare these decisions for the governing board. And then at the late administration comes first, because they need to be able, the governing board, the members, they need to be able to start taking those to function. But then, of course, right afterwards, decisions on strategy, on substance, will be also start to take place there. And all that can start well before we finalize all the nitty-gritty administrative issues with the center. Hopefully we will have a couple of meetings of the shadow governing board and a couple of meetings still this year of the official governing board. Let's see what's possible there. On the level of the member states, still on the second level, very important component is the national coordination centers. We know that all member states are working on this. And this is an element of high interest to all member states. It's not easy. It's not easy to decide at national level to coordinate the different actors. We are having from the Commission. We are having, we get many questions from member states, and we reply. In parallel, we are preparing the guidance of the national coordination centers that, according to the regulation, the Commission needs to come up with. This must be. I recall this. These are bodies that could, these are entities that could potentially and most likely manage EU funding. So that comes with certain requirements. We will certainly have dedicated meetings on these issues with the member states on this issue, beyond what we can do at the governing board. We already had meetings in the past, and we will continue doing so. This is a key piece of the whole architecture, the national coordination centers. Then also with member states, there's the issue of the substance of the work programs. Well, the work programs, the center is not yet there. That will be its future task. Very important to prepare the work programs for cyber, the relevant work programs. The Commission has prepared the work programs of Horizon, the first, the 122 work program of Horizon Europe, and of Digital Europe program that both contained important chapters on cybersecurity. Member states have received them already, the first drafts, but not the competence center, of course, because it's not yet there, as I said. But other committees, member states, let's say, have received it, and in due time, these programs will go to the competence center for discussion. The third level, after, let's say, the center, the member states, the network of national coordination centers, and at the third level is the community, what we call the community. And this is in particular where the pilots come into play very much, but also other actors, EXO in particular. Of course, we want to build on what EXO has done for years. We have had a very fruitful, the Commission has had a very fruitful contract with EXO, and the member states have stressed we need to build on what has happened there. So we are also discussing with EXO about taking, how to go to the next step, as it were. ENISA, of course, we're also talking with ENISA as well. ENISA will be an important actor of the competence center. They have a role. They are mentioned many times in the regulation, but otherwise we work with ENISA, the Commission, my DG, hand in hand on many issues, and they are also helping with these aspects around the community. In practice, what we're doing with the pilots, with EXO, with ENISA, is to try to collect, to identify all the relevant inputs, and so that we can sort of hand them over to the center and the network. That's what we're doing now. So to conclude, perhaps just to say that well, it's quite a challenge to set up a new body. We discover new things every day, I must say, and it will take time. But as I said, because at the end of the day, this body will have very important responsibility, not only about strategy, but about managing EU funding, not just deciding about it, but managing. That comes with certain requirements. But as I said, this administrative aspect, this capacity to manage EU funding, to fund, have the right building in Bucharest, the secure location, and all these things. Of course, it's important, but it's a means. It's a means to an end at the end of the day. And the end is to have a common, let's say, a common approach for deciding about cybersecurity investments in Europe. This is what the goal is at the end of the day. And that we will start with the center already, this year. So these sort of discussions, we can already start them already. And that's what will happen next, as soon as the regulation will be adopted. And I will leave it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miguel. It's very exciting what's happening, and that was a very comprehensive view of the overall picture. It's amazing how much stuff that needs to be done, administrative stuff and legal, as well as choosing a building and choosing staff and so on and so forth, and sorting out funding. When do you think, so the two-phase question is, when do you think the center will be fully functioning? And the corollary to that is, will it be partially functioning before it's fully functioning? Will it go with a bang one day, or will it work in gradually?
Well, that question, I have asked that question. I've checked with colleagues that have set up EU bodies before, and the question consistently, I got an answer like somebody told me a new something like this. It takes 2 years, at least 1 year and a half, 2 years. And I was myself. I went, no, cannot be. But then it's the second question that you asked. It would be 18 months or whatever that is for it to be kind of fully operational. And I give an example. For instance, we need a hosting agreement with the country. That, of course, there will be some procedures in Romania with Parliament, and so, for instance, we work with ENISA, and we know that at the time, that sort of process took some time. We will, of course, hope that it won't be very long, but many people are basically involved. But in reply to your second question, and I said it before and I stressed it, we don't need to wait until the last person will be recruited. That will take time. I didn't mention it. Recruiting people, it's something that apparently takes time, because you need to set up, you need to recreate a bit of, if you like, a bit of what we have in Brussels, and in the we need to recreate it in Bucharest. So when people are recruited there, we need to be able for them to be paid and so on. And apparently it's not so easy, but we don't need to wait until the last person to be recruited to start doing a lot of things. So in reply to your question, David, it will be progressive. In particular, the governing board can start taking decisions, meeting, at a distance, well before they will meet for the first time in Bucharest.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, people always get in the way of technology. That's always been the case. There's a question from the audience concerning the governing body. Could you tell us something about the criteria for the nomination and selection of the governing body?
That is actually, of course, in the regulation, and there's an article about it. And well, the governing body, governing board, it's made up of representatives from all member states and from the Commission. And as far as member states are concerned, at the Commission, it's member states who decide who they send there. Well, in the regulation, there are some indications about the profile that is expected in terms of competence in the domain, in terms of competence in the domain, and in terms of management qualities and so on. But at the end of the day, it will be for member states to decide. Now, of course, we do know that member states will send the right people there. Actually, to comment on this, it's what we're looking for here. It's let's say a mix, if I can simplify, of cybersecurity expertise, but at the same time also a competence in investment. I mean, from a public perspective, in funding, let's say. And then, as we know with cybersecurity, that's one of the challenges. Very often you need to call on different ministries, on different departments in member states. So can be perhaps Ministry of the Interior or cybersecurity agency, but at the same time research ministry. So it will be for member states. That will be the first kind of decision to take who can represent them in this governing board. And yeah, it will be a very important decision.
Okay, thank you, Miguel. I'd like to turn now to Ramona. Ramona, who represents Romania in cybersecurity matters in Brussels, so has a unique relationship between the institutions and what is going on in the ground in Romania. And it would be good to hear from you about your experience of the relationship, the growing relationship between Brussels and the cybersecurity community in Romania, and how you see the impact and potential of the Center for Bucharest, and also for Romania, and for the relationship between Brussels and Bucharest. So, Ramona.
Thank you very much, David, and good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation to your event with this highly important topic, not only for Romania but for Europe. Just as a reaction to what Miguel has mentioned in relation to the rapid operationalization of the center in Romania. Indeed, the rapid setup and the actual operationalization of the cybersecurity center in Romania is of major importance for us. And therefore, we already engaged in a dialogue with the European Commission. And at national level, we set up a task force that will deal with the immediate and key elements in order to ensure a fast, effective, and to allow the center to become operational in a short period of time. This includes as well the prompt availability of a highly equipped and modern building where the center will develop its activity and all the necessary administrative arrangements in place for the personnel of the center and their families and partners. Now, coming back to your specific question in relation to the link and the actual cooperation between the center and the research and industrial community. You know, Romania is recognized as the European Silicon Valley, as many Romanian brands are internationally appreciated, like Bitdefender or UiPath and many more. And Romania is equally a host of some of the most important international cyber exercises, such as SOPAS BioLex, CyDex, Cyber Europe exercise, Log Shields, and many others. Equally, in Romania, because I saw that you have representatives from the academia, and I would like to underline that in Romania we have over 15 programs of cybersecurity developed in over 11 university centers and high schools, with a variety of topics ranging from cybersecurity of the military information systems to cryptography to digital investigations to machine learning and so on. So, considering all the above mentioned, I think that the community plays a crucial role in achieving all the political and economic driven priorities in the area of cybersecurity, so not only linked to the center itself. But what I think, because from what I heard from the previous speakers, I think it's very important to underline that the center does not impose regulatory obligations upon community, but instead opens up opportunities in terms of cost reductions for the design of new products or gaining easier access to the investors community. And even more in the case of SMEs and micro enterprises, I think it will be a huge help for them because they will be able to access publicly funded testing and experimentation facilities. And let's be realistic, they lack resources. So in this respect, the center will bring up a significant added value. Now, the center is also about competencies, and this is a major topic for Europe because cybersecurity relies heavily on the skills of the people and companies. And I was reading yesterday a study of the European Commission saying that the cybersecurity skills gap of professionals working in the private sector in Europe is predicted to be 350,000 by 2022. For sure, as cybersecurity is such a broad field, it requires strong cooperation and information sharing between all different stakeholders, including, of course, the public-private cooperation that was already mentioned previously by Miguel. So, from our experience, and now as we have an agreement on the legislative proposal, I think that the center, working together with the network, I think that it will be in a capacity to help the research community to work together. As we all know, that challenges cannot be resolved by one country only or by one discipline only. So we really believe that researchers from different areas will have access to the widest possible set of skills and knowledges, and they will find in this center a dedicated cybersecurity knowledge space. And of course, what is really very important from our discussions with the researchers, with the academia, with the industry, it's very important that they have access to testing and experimentation infrastructure, and especially now to HPC and to AI and to software testing platforms for real-time data sets. Of course, in this context, whenever there is a discussion about all this priority, there is always a major element, and this is the investment. And as it was mentioned before, the investments are planned by the EU framework for the next 7 years through the Digital Europe program or Horizon Europe program or Recovery Plan for Europe. Here I'm referring to cybersecurity. And so that there is the priority of the European Commission is to reach up to 4.5 billion euros of combined investments from the EU, from member states, from the industry, and this will be done notably within the activity of the Cybersecurity Center and its network. I think I can be very long. I don't know how much time I have. I don't know if you have any specific questions. If not, I can probably underline some specific elements about Romania. I don't know how much time do I have.
I have a question. It's a bit of a cheeky one. Before the announcement was made, on the 9th of December. Not everybody would have bet that Bucharest would have won. Perhaps there are people in other member states who would have thought something else. So, what are the characteristics of the cybersecurity community in Bucharest or in Romania that probably won the argument for the center to be located there?
Thank you, David. Actually, it's not a tricky question; it's an excellent question, which I would like to thank you very much.
That's okay.
Because it gives me a really pleasure to talk about this topic. I think one of the most important arguments that convinced member states, the other countries, to vote in favor of Bucharest, Romania, is the fact that Romania is a country with a strong digital mentality, has an excellent digital infrastructure, has excellent high-speed communication infrastructures due to the wide availability of fast and ultra-fast broadband networks. According to the data of the European Commission, Romania ranks third in the EU in terms of ultra-fast broadband subscriptions, and the use of social networks is far more widespread than in all other EU member states, with Romania being in the first place in the EU with 86% of internet users. Romania is famous worldwide for its brilliant and talented IT specialists and engineers, and is proud with its impressive number of ICT graduates. And Romania is ranking 6th among the EU member states with a percentage of 4.9 of all graduates. Also, Bucharest. Bucharest is a very well-connected city to all EU capitals. Bucharest ranks 6th in the EU in terms of ICT graduates, ranks 3rd in the EU in terms of women ICT specialists, ranks 4th worldwide in terms of medals obtained in all times international ITC scholar competitions, ranks 3rd in the world in terms of fixed broadband internet speed, and is 1st in the EU in the most competitive fast internet service. Also, an argument that I think was very important for both member states, our colleagues, member states, but also for the European Commission, is the fact that Bucharest hosts an important number of international and Romanian companies active in the field of ICT and cybersecurity, and equally has impressive cultural opportunities and entertainment. So I can continue. I can continue a lot. Well, I can say that also Bucharest is considered to be the best city in the world for working from home or remotely, which is now crucial during the pandemic. And it ranks first among 50 worldwide cities in 2020 in terms of multilingual temporary staff. Bucharest is 7th out of 25 European cities and is first in the Central European and Eastern Europe in terms of opportunities for startups and technologies. So there are many arguments, both political, both economic, both in terms of infrastructure, both in terms of a strong cybersecurity ecosystem, that I think that for sure convinced all member states that Romania is an excellent location for the cybersecurity center.
Thank you, Ramona. This evening was always intended to be a celebration of all things Romanian and Bucharesti, so it's good to hear all of these good stories. But I'd like to turn now to Professor Stelian Brad, who, as I said before, is president of the Cluj IT cluster and a professor at the local university in Cluj-Napoca. And we've heard a lot about Bucharest, but we don't hear that much about Cluj. And I think it would be very interesting. Kai, in his introduction, mentioned CHEX, which is an acronym that we developed for Community Hubs of Expertise in Cybersecurity Knowledge, CHECK. And we've identified one in Toulouse and one or two elsewhere, but it looks very much like the Cluj IT cluster is very much a CHEK. And I think we'd all like to hear what is happening in Cluj and how come it's such a hotbed of IT activity, and with the university and the industrial cluster that is there too. So the floor is yours. Please tell us about Cluj.
Thank you very much, and I salute everyone in this evening, and I'm so happy that I have this opportunity for saying a few words about Cluj and Cluj ecosystem. For sure, we'll have a comment on the cybersecurity aspects too. But yeah, for the attendance, I would say that Cluj-Napoca is okay after Bucharest. The city with the largest community of IT experts in Romania. But if we count the density of the IT specialists, I would say that it's on the first place in our country. We have about more than 20,000 specialist experts in the IT sector, with more than 1,200 IT companies located in our city, and companies that are operating worldwide, either with own technologies as well with sophisticated IT services. We have 10 universities, a big concentration of universities with more than 100,000 students. And some of these universities have strong background on the IT sector. Actually, our city was one of the cities in Romania with a history in the IT industry. So it's something organic, natural to have today this strong IT community. It is not, say, a competition with Bucharest, but we are, let's say, close together and try to develop things. in our country and in Europe worldwide. So I would say that from in many classifications, you will find Cluj-Napoca as an IT hub, a strong IT hub. On the cybersecurity side, of course, and on the other side, we have a strong culture of cooperation, which I like to highlight. So I would say that our city is the city of cluster initiatives in Romania, and I would say that is so important. Also, the lessons we learn from this strong cooperation, even to share with the competence center that is going to be established in Bucharest, because I think beyond any kind of technical issues, to build up such a competence center will require a lot of things on the institutional side, because as you mentioned, it is a challenge to have both a center but as well as a network which is strategically aligned to a common goal. So I would say that we can bring in this framework such an expertise, and I'm glad just to say that very recently in Romania we have started a strategic national project on the national framework for blockchain and distributed ledger technologies, and I'm honored to coordinate this initiative. Will be a large-scale project with a lot of contribution, I would say, also from our colleagues in Europe to set up a sustainable solution in this respect, which afterwards can be spread, and also we can use this competence center as a platform for sharing the results we'll get in this project. But also we have many companies with a background on cybersecurity in our city, in our cluster, and we are in the process even to set up a national hub on cybersecurity, including an ambition to internationalize the Romanian competencies worldwide on cybersecurity, building up already bridges to South America with Africa, Central America, and other places. So we are thinking at large scale also, and I would say this could be also a strong point to have this competence center in Romania, and we are very proud of this. And of course, the IT community in our country will contribute to support this initiative. Nevertheless, we have to consider, as you have mentioned, the community, which is one of the most important pillar in let's say in this construction. And from this perspective, we also have initiated European project for cybersecurity on micro and small businesses. And everybody knows that Europe is the continent of small and middle-sized enterprises, which bring a lot of value added in our economy and to the prosperity of society. And we have the project called Cyber Geiger. We have this ambition to bring as much as possible the cybersecurity issues to very ground level, to individuals and to small businesses. And even from this perspective, I'm very happy that even geographically we are so close for this on this competence center. Thank you, and yeah, I'm looking forward for questions.
Okay, thank you, Stelian. I think it would be very interesting if we could find some way of collaborating with Cluj IT on two levels. One is on some of the governance aspects associated with your community, as well as collaborating on with Cyber Geiger. We were talking this afternoon about work that we want to carry out. We're contracted to carry out relating to SMEs and micro SMEs, and some of the challenges associated with that. So we would be very interested in collaborating in the future. How is the cluster established, and how long has it been going? Because it seems to be fairly extensive. I think it would come as a big surprise to hear that Cluj-Napoca, I might have pronounced it correctly there.
It is correctly pronounced, yes.
Good. Second or third time right. That it's got 10 universities. That's really quite remarkable. So how did it start, and what were the motivators, and what were the inspirations on starting the cluster?
I think it's quite a very good question, because I will use this opportunity not only just talking about the cluster, but just to share a perspective of how we can build an institution that is both a network and, let's say, an organization. And I think this could be very much close to the idea of the Competence Center, which is going to be set up in Bucharest. In fact, the initiative came up from a bottom-up approach, not a top-down one. In fact, it was the ambition of the local sector at the beginning to change the business model, the paradigm of doing business from services to more intellectual property solutions. And yeah, that was a focus on innovation, but it was not sufficient, because in a network, it's one issue of facilitating communication, but it was a point when we decided why not building up some means, some instruments, such as to make competitors collaborate. And I think that was a kind of paradigm shift, which raised up attention also at the European level about how we succeeded to do this, let's say, interesting approach, where competing companies succeeded to work together for some niche initiatives for something that is going to open new windows of opportunity. And everything is related with the institutional construction, because you have to have a very clear means to make such construction functional. For example, to have in place a very clear project management office with all rules, procedures, such as very fast you can set up a new team or a task force which is constituted from different holonic structures, from different expertise in different companies. So this is a major challenge, but we succeeded in a period of time to make a functional office in this respect. It's a matter of the code of ethics between partners, and this is part of an institutional construction to gather trust and to build on this. It's about intellectual property, and we are talking also about work program on research, and I think even for the new competence center that will be necessary, as well as about NDAs and other stuff. So I would say that this type of unique construction at having synergies at operational level may possible to transform a kind of let's say orchestrator of an ecosystem to something that is going to build up to make a kind of structural transformation in the industry. And by, let's say, extending this idea at the European level, I will say that I'm optimistic on having a functional construction through this competence center. And of course, as you mentioned, we'll be very honored to contribute with our, let's say, experience in supporting this initiative.
Thank you, Stelia. Thank you very much. I'd like to turn now to Monica Florea, who is Director of European Projects with CIMAVI. And Monica has been involved on the industrial side of the technology, the cybersecurity community in Romania, and has always had close ties with Brussels. So it would be very interesting to hear about the role and growth of the community from both a technical and a business sense, and the growing development of ties with Brussels, which I know you've been involved in for a long time.
Good evening, David. Good evening, everybody. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm very glad to be here and to hear different opinions on the Competence Center in Bucharest. I will start with a brief presentation of myself and of the company that I represent. So I'm the head of unit of European projects in CIMAVI. CIMAVI is an IT company. It's coming from Software Imagination and Vision, being a spin-off of Civeco, and accumulating and inheriting actually all the expertise that Civeco had in IT, so providing IT services and projects in wide domains like health, also security or agriculture, of course, in education and e-learning. Myself, I'm involved a lot in research and innovation projects. I can say that we are running now more than 30 Horizon projects on different fields and domains. And security, it's, I think, one of the largest domains that we are involved in because of the application side. Actually, we participate in security-related projects with application in health, in energy, in border security, in prediction and visual intelligence, and counter-terrorism. We have a lot of expertise also in coordination of these projects, but mainly we play the role of technological partner. We play the role of integrator, and we collaborate a lot with different other stakeholders, from research academic partners to other NGOs, practitioners, and some other public entities, and also other companies, of course, from different from Romania, but also from other European countries. In relation with security, we also, as a company, we are involved a lot in providing e-learning and e-training tools that are also related to security, and we provide all the IT tools necessary for providing the training. And also we are using latest technologies like augmented reality, virtual reality, serious games. And we provide also training to different law enforcement agencies, but also to other stakeholders. In relation with cybersecurity in the current pandemic context, unfortunately, on one hand, it's an unfortunate context, but on the other hand, all this digitalization of the services that are, it's a little bit accelerating, and it will provide a lot of ground for cybersecurity and security. And I consider that there is a lot of need of even for cybersecurity specialists. I'm not talking only about Romania, but generally speaking, collaborating in all these projects with different countries, we realize that it's a lot of need of training, and also in terms of expertise. And on the other hand, there is also a lot to do also in terms of standardization, because now cybersecurity let's say it's covering a lot, and we have to, from, for example, security-related behavior in the organization. I think it would be useful to have studies, for example, on security-related behavior in, generally speaking, not only in companies, but in all type of organizations. So it's a lot to do. And as Miguel mentioned in the beginning, this cybersecurity, this competence center actually will play an important role for managing the funding for Horizon Europe and Digital Europe. And we are looking forward, because in all these programs, I know that cybersecurity play an important role, has a significant budget allocated, and it's very important from my perspective to apart from, let's say, public-private collaboration, to build and to strengthen all the community related to cybersecurity. And for example, today in the morning, I attended a workshop organized by DG Home related to actually it's a community of users that now it's called Community for European Research and Innovation for Security on short series. And I think in providing this cybersecurity service, a key role is the collaboration between policymakers, research academia, industry, practitioners, even civil society. So I do hope that setting up this competence center in Romania will provide a good ground for, let's say, strengthen the collaboration in between all these entities, not only in Romania, but at the European level. And from our perspective as a company, we have a very strong department related to cybersecurity, and now in all the projects that we participate, either commercial projects or research projects, cybersecurity is a key aspect that need to be treated, let's say, even more complex than several years before. I don't know if we have questions. I try to be short, but I do appreciate the invitation today evening talk.
Thank you, Monica. There are some people who would say that Bucharest is as far away from Brussels as you can get in the European Union, and yet, which is geographically true, but with your experience over the years, how have you felt Brussels and Bucharest and Romania in general getting closer in terms of collaboration and awareness?
Okay. What I can say, I mean, my personal experience, I have a background in computer science, and I was staying for several years in Canada. And after that, coming back in Bucharest and starting working in Civeco and now in Civavi, but actually it's the same, let's say, same company. I can say that Brussels was my second home apart from Bucharest, because I was traveling a lot to Brussels, being in charge of this research and development projects. From my perspective, Brussels is not very far away from Bucharest. But as Ramona said today, I mean, tonight, actually, we have a lot of good experts in IT here in Bucharest. And I consider that, Bucharest, in this perspective, can offer, this expertise that would be necessary for cybersecurity and for the center.
Okay, thank you, Monica. In the interest of time, I'd like to move now, last but by no means least, to Virgil. If Brussels is a long way from Bucharest, Pittsburgh is even further. And I know that you started life in Romania, and you've kept contact with the Romanian technology community ever since. And it'd be really interesting to hear your perspective from abroad of how you've seen things change and how you see the emergence of this flowering of technology and cybersecurity in Romania, and also possibly what links there are with the United States. Virgil, you're on mute. It's the button at the bottom. Oh, we can't hear you. You've muted yourself. I think we know what you want to say, but we can't hear you. Do you want to turn the volume up, perhaps? No, we just cannot hear you. It might be an idea, Virgil, if you exit and come back in again. So if you exit and come back in again, I'll kick you out and you come back in. That's very unfortunate. It's probably something for me to do with me saying that Pittsburgh is a very long way away. We couldn't hear him. Oh dear. That's thrown me completely. So, do we have any questions from the audience? Let me see. One of the questions, and this was something I put to Virgil, is...
Can you hear me now?
Oh, Virgil.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, at last. All right. Well, thank you much for inviting me, David and Kai. I really appreciate it. I must start by saying that I really appreciate the success of establishing the Center of Competence in Bucharest for a very good reason. I tried once to do something similar and failed miserably, and not for lack of funding. This is about 2000. And what I tried to do is to establish a Center of Competence with funding from NATO. In particular, Romania was supposed to ascend to NATO a few years later, and there was funding from the United States, and there was funding from the DIA, which was the Romanian Defense Intelligence, and the whole thing failed. Why? Because the decision to establish the center in Bucharest was a political decision, had nothing to do with funding. And the political decisions are usually extremely difficult. In particular, in this case, the question which arose is, why Bucharest? When in fact we had 3 countries from Eastern Europe that already joined, Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic, and 3 others from the Baltics would ascend at the same time as Romania. So why Bucharest? And in fact, there are very good reasons why such a center should be in Bucharest. primarily because there was interest in Romania, particularly in the academia, in what we now call security in the early 70s. This was about the time when Monica's advisor got interested as well. And unfortunately, a lot of people who were interested at the time are now gone to better things, have passed away. But in any case, so there was interest in Romania, there was interest in the United States, there was interest in Europe at the time, but there wasn't enough in the way of capabilities. There are not that many people. Between 1972 and 1976, there are 6 people who got their PhDs in what we now call security worldwide. And most of the 6 were either in the United States or at Cambridge in the UK. So obviously, interest in Romania in this area was early. And later in the 2000s, I believe that Monica's former advisor, Professor Irina Atanasiou at the Polytechnica, started the first hacking laboratory that you can actually read about on the internet. This is all ethical hacking. And in fact, some of the people who graduated from this laboratory went on to other things, such as, for example, Costin Raiu, who is the head of the research at Kaspersky, was one of the graduates of that activity. So in any way, Romania has a tradition of research in security, and I think the tradition will continue, and with this new initiative, that tradition is going to be institutionalized. So instead of arguing as to why it kind of makes sense from a political point of view to place this center in Bucharest, I'd like to offer my view on what the vision should be for research, for the research aspect of it. Of course, the center is much more than just about research. So what I like to do is to start with a small anecdote to tell you, to motivate what research should be. So the anecdote goes like this. Over about 12 years ago, an august audience at Cambridge University in the UK was told that there are 3 axioms of cyber insecurity. Insecurity, not security. And the 3 axioms went like this. There will be always rapid innovation in information technology, and rapid innovation in information technology always leads to cyber insecurity. And that's going to be forever. And forever horizon at the time was about 15 years, or the retirement age of the speaker. Now, why is that the case? Why is that axiom an axiom? Why does it hold today? Well, there are 3 reasons for that. So rapid innovation is triggered by 0 cost of entry in the business, 0 regulation, and 0 liability, or near 0. Okay, so that means that you can innovate. Anybody can get into the business. It's not like in the pharmaceuticals. It's not in the aerospace. You don't need billions. You need brains and a bunch of laptops and access to the network, of course. So consequently, we got more innovation per unit of time in the last 30 years than the entire human history combined, right? So that rapid innovation means no security. Why? Because people don't have the time to pay attention to the details, to the mathematics required by security. So, and this is going to be forever if the 3 zeros, 0 cost of entry, 0 regulation, 0 liability, will be on. So it's an axiom. It's going to happen from now till eternity. The second axiom said something about 0 days. It said that large software systems happen to grow to a point when nobody understands their security properties, meaning there will always be 0 days, forever. Okay? And the third one was, given axiom number 1 and 2, there will always be adversaries to take advantage of the results of these axioms for economic, political, social reasons. Well, it turns out that those axioms hold today. So now the question is, in view of this, how can we talk about cybersecurity? Well, so what I'm here to say is that at the same time, about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, there are 3 axioms of security, of usable security. And those are the ones that we should focus on. And that is part of the mission, our mission as researchers. And it doesn't matter that they are in the United States, in EU, in China, or in anywhere else, Russia, anywhere else, Israel. So the 3 axioms for usable security were equally telling. The first one was that users don't need security all the time. So in other words, that users could have platforms, software platforms, on their insecure systems, which are provably secure, which they could use. The second axiom said that, that this platform should offer feasible recourse to breaches of their system. So in other words, these platforms which have 0 days, or no 0 days, no attacks whatsoever, should allow feasible resource to recover your system from a cybersecurity attack. And the third axiom was obviously, and all this should be, to be usable, should be as simple as possible. Okay. So now I'm here to report that in the next 5 to 10 years, we will have insecure commodity systems that will run ultra-secure platforms that would be activated on demand by users, which cannot be breached by anyone in the world, meaning not China, not the United States, not Israel, not Russia, not the UK, not the EU, all of them together won't be able to breach them. Okay, so how do I know that? Well, I have a particular insight. We have now begun to develop solutions to security problems which are unconditionally secure. That means they use no secrets, they use no trusted hardware modules, and they do not put any bound on the power of the adversary. You could have all the quantum computers in the world that you cannot breach or you cannot bypass the solutions to these problems. So at least we have one so far. That's the beginning. So now we can build on that one to build these isolated platforms that would have 0 days mathematically provably. And what I mean by that is actual code, not design specs, but code that's run that's mathematical provably correct. So I basically, I want to stop here and say, look, the axioms of insecurity will be with us forever, but they can coexist with the axioms of usable security. So we can have our cake and eat it too. Don't pay very much for commodity systems. They'll be always insecure, but at the same time, have these on-demand platforms that you can activate securely in a usable manner. So that's basically the vision that I like to put forth for the research, not just for the center, but for the rest of us who might not be formally affiliated with the center. Okay, so roughly that's what I wanted to mention. And I can take any questions or any comments. Those would be good too.
I very much like this idea of cyber insecurity running synergistically with usable security. I need to go and think about that a little bit, but it's a great vision. One of the things I wanted to ask, which occurred to me while you were talking, was the Cybersecurity Competence Network and Center has created a lot of interest within Europe, not surprisingly. Besides your good self, does anybody else in the United States know about it and care?
Oh, most definitely. You have a lot of cybersecurity expertise in the United States that is actually has grown in Europe. So you have a lot of Europeans in the United States who are really top-notch experts in cybersecurity. And I'm talking about people like Giovanni Vigna, and who comes from Italy, of course, at University of California, Santa Barbara. Christopher Krugel, who comes from Austria, who's also Santa Barbara. Then you have number of prominent Romanian researchers, such as Raluca Popa, who is at University of California, Berkeley. She's an assistant professor. On and on and on. There are quite a few. There are people from all over the place who obviously would have some interest in being affiliated with the center, because they do have friends and family and colleagues in Europe. Now, that's number one. Number two is that it really doesn't matter so much that the center is located in Romania and that it's a European center. What matters is that the European Union found the political will and the political means to establish the center somewhere, right? Because this is going to hopefully crystallize some of the efforts in Europe itself. For example, in Germany at Saarbrücken, Cambridge, CICIT in Belfast, and there are lots of other very good places, but you need some sort of a vision and the center to coordinate that vision. And I think that this was a big success for the European Union to be able to do it somewhere.
Thank you, Virgil. Miguel, I turn back to you. Virgil has come out with a bold vision, and a vision also for the role of an international role for the center. Is that something that you share? Does the center have? You've talked about enabling and managing funding for Horizon Europe and Digital Europe and so on. Does it have a broader scope than that? Do you believe?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, I must say that I very much agree with what Virgil just said about the political willingness. I was talking before about the challenges of setting the center from an administrative perspective, but actually I'm not very worried about it. It will happen. I mean, it will take more or less months, but that will happen. I mean, there will be a center, there will be a building, there will be people recruited, and the rest of it. So there's no problem. But the real true thing that think it's important here is actually the actual intellectual, if you like, drive. So those member states coming together with the European level, represented by the Commission, that really want to come together in setting a path, a strategic path, for investments. But before you decide about investments, you need to decide where to go. And as we know, in the area of cyber, this is not something that comes easily. First of all, because cyber is very diverse, of course, but actually, member states come from their different kind of let's say approaches, national approaches. So actually, things are moving very fast in this space with different initiatives at policy level. But this is the real test, so that member states can really align their efforts and put let's say the funding where the strategy is. And this is what will be really the real test for the center. And we might have a center, but that's only the vehicle, that's only the structure. It needs to be filled with, as Virgil said, with let's say with vision, with the strategy, with going in the same direction. And that's what we actually, the Commission, when proposing this is what we wanted to achieve. And it's going to be a journey. It's not going to be a button that we will push sometime in some months from now and everything. No. We need to create that momentum. And then the center we've talked about, but equally important, if not more, but at least equally important, is these national coordination networks. The role that we play in the national ecosystem. Many member states are talking I'm talking to. They say, listen, you've already, with the proposals, you've already created a movement, because we need to talk. We need to talk with each other at national level and try to coordinate our efforts. So it's not easy at national level either. But that's something that will have to that will play a very important role. If we achieve that, then we can, of course, think about even going broader and international projection and things like that. Yes, people are interested. They've noticed abroad already about this center. They want to know more. They want to start cooperating. We have to tell them, listen, we need to have a center first. We just had a political agreement. But there's eagerness. There's a lot of interest, I can tell you, for what Europe is trying to do here. So hopefully, this will grow, and we will be able to have those partnerships even beyond the European Union.
That's really very good to hear, Miguel, and very positive indeed. Conscious of the time, I think it'd be good to start with a wrap up. So I'd like to turn to each of you, maybe starting Ramona. Virgil has expressed a vision, and we've heard something, a supporting statement from the Commission on that. What's your vision for what the centre in Bucharest can do for Romania, and how you see that progressing over the coming 5 years, say?
Yes, I agree with what Virgil has mentioned, because all of us, we have witnessed that the security has moved in the past year from an IT field to an ecosystem. Cybersecurity is not anymore a sector, it's an ecosystem. Why? Because it impacts everyone, from an individual user to a company, to an organization, to vital sectors such as energy, transport, water, banking, and so on. And I think Virgil is right. 20 years ago, we were talking about how many cyber attacks we have per year. 10 years later, we were talking about how many cyber attacks we have per day. And nowadays, we talk about how many cyber attacks we have per second. I was reading several days ago a report where they were saying that last year more than 800 millions of malicious online attacks took place worldwide. So it's clear that cybersecurity is international by nature. And you mentioned the distance issue, and Monica explained very clearly. And indeed, distance doesn't matter anymore. Why? Because our leaders, our European leaders, the European Commission, have decided, have set up that highly digitized economy represents the high priority, the highest priority, the crucial priority of Europe. And that is why in our candidacy, the most important element in fact, for all the candidacies of the member states was the strong infrastructure and the strong ecosystem. Now, in terms of what the center in Bucharest can do, I think that there is a bidimensional relation between the center and the community, because I'm sure that in the future they will support each other, and it's clear that both the community and both the competence center and the network will benefit from already the experience of so many initiatives we have already established in EU, like the 4 pilot projects launched in 2019, in which of course it's included the CyberSec for Europe. There is also the pilot project and the preparatory action on free and open source software audit. There is the contractual public-private partnership in cybersecurity between Commission and the European Cybersecurity Organization. What I'm trying to say is that for sure the center in Romania will have the strength and the support of a strong cybersecurity ecosystem, and the commitment of the authorities, but also it's
We lost Ramona.
Yeah.
These things happen. I'm sure she'll be back. So, Stelion, maybe I can turn to you next while Ramona gets herself back on.
Please.
How would you, talking of visions and hope for the future, how do you see this initiative and everything that goes with it that Miguel talked about at the beginning, this large community, the member states all behind it? How is that going to, what is your vision and how this is going to help your business at the university and in the cluster going forward? Do you share the vision that you did already?
Yeah. First of all, definitely, as we saw in the past, so these are historical facts. When a hub or a pole of interest is established in a place, it acts as a magnet. So I'm definitely sure that the establishing of this center in Bucharest will raise attention to the young people for doing more research, for universities in doing research on cybersecurity, and I'm sure that from the academic point of view, the study program and research program in this field will raise up. On the other side, I'm very sure that being a magnet for research in Europe or financing program in research and cybersecurity will indicate a lot of interactions among our researchers and European researchers. But in terms of vision, I'm very much looking forward to what is happening now in Israel, in Beersheba. Maybe it's something that makes sense to have a look on it. And I'm looking forward to have something in Bucharest. Why not? Of course. But a strong distributed, let's say, ledger network in Europe on cybersecurity to be strong and to give trust to citizens and companies that this is a continent where they can do safe business in a world that is more and more digital. Thank you.
Thank you, Stelian. And welcome back, Ramona. Sorry we lost you. Monica, how do you see this initiative and the focus on Romania in general helping your business over the coming years? Is it going to make a difference? I assume it will, but how do you see that?
Indeed, establishing anyway cybersecurity. It is a key. It's an important aspect that will tackle all the society as a whole. So its importance is obvious, and I hope that establishing this center in Romania, it would be a very good decision in the end, and a very good opportunity of taking advantage of Romanian, let's say, Romanian advantages in terms of IT specialists, and also it will gather all the expertise that will come from, experts from Brussels and some other member states, and it will, in the end, with support of the European Commission, because to function, it's an European center actually, and it's localized in Romania, but let's say it's functional. To be functional. It's need, of course, and the European Commission will be the support of this, and I do hope that will let's say increase and will make a grow in the businesses in Bucharest, and not only in Bucharest, because by myself being involved in these research projects that will be funded by Horizon Europe and Digital Europe. Anyway, we collaborate, and I think collaboration and the collaboration between complementary organization and bringing together all necessary expertise, we can let's say we can fight about this cybersecurity problems that are increasing now.
Thank you. That sounds very positive too. Collaboration is key to everything that we're doing, which is why we've got this center, and in particular the network. So Virgil, a question to you to wind up is, one of the important aspects of European research and innovation and technology is to create a digital sovereignty within Europe. Do you think what you've heard today, and what the discussions around the center and the network, will significantly increase the profile of Europe's potential to be digitally sovereign in the space of cybersecurity?
I'm actually quite convinced of that, because I don't believe that there is any more cybersecurity in the United States or China or Russia than there is mathematics, American mathematics, or Russian physics, or Chinese telecommunications. So clearly there is no monopoly on talent and production and efficiency in cybersecurity. So developing cybersecurity in Europe will go a long way towards sovereignty, much more so, by the way, than privacy. Europe is a leader in privacy, but unfortunately, privacy is a matter of, unfortunately, secondary importance to security, which is itself a matter of secondary importance, right? Both solve fundamental problems. They'll both be with us forever, but they are of secondary importance. First, you have to produce the systems. Now, digital platforms are being produced all over the place. And of course, in Europe, much more so than in a lot of other places. So in terms of cybersecurity, securing these digital platforms will in fact project Europe in a primary place, in a driver's seat. If cybersecurity develops faster in Europe, then digital sovereignty will be accomplished in Europe much faster than anticipated. So I think this is just a tool towards digital sovereignty in Europe.
Excellent. That's really good to hear, and I think that's a good point to, conscious of the time, to wind up. Digital sovereignty is one of the cornerstones of the Commission's ambition. I would imagine Miguel would agree with that.
Sorry, say that again, David.
Digital sovereignty, important.
Yeah, I could only agree. Actually, well, if I go back to the basics, the vision for the center is to increase the cyber capabilities for Europe, and that goes, in the direction of the narrative of technological sovereignty and strategic autonomy. Indeed, because digital. Well, part of that vision for technological sovereignty, strategic autonomy is about digital capacities, and as we know, we cannot go much further with digital capabilities without cybersecurity. So indeed, cyber contributes to that narrative of open strategic autonomy.
Wonderful. Well, we're 15 minutes over time. We've still kept most of our audience, which is always a good sign. I think the fact that I teasingly said that Bucharest was a long way from Brussels and Pittsburgh was even further, but as we've demonstrated this evening, there is no difference in the digital world. And one of the positives from the restrictions due to COVID, that we can't meet in Hessen, is that we can so easily bring together people from different parts of the world to have an evening like this. So I would like to thank you all for your participation and for exploring the technologies and the cybersecurity and the opportunities that exist within Romania, all parts of Romania, with the establishment of the center. So I thank you, Virgil, Ramona, Stelian, Monica, and Miguel for your participation, and to the audience for listening. This session has been recorded, so it will be available on our website. We'll send a note to everybody who's registered that this is available. And if there are any follow-up questions, please get in touch with either me or the project, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. So thank you, and have a very good evening wherever you are. And one day I look forward to meeting you all in person.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yes,
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.